Hey there, guys. So I want to thank you for taking the time to check out today's stream, as I always say. So, of course, I do, as always, want to mention my website before we do get started and really diving into this topic in particular today. So, of course, my website is bponlinefitness.com. You can check it out directly from, of course, my group. There should be a link on there where you can actually check out my website and you can go directly to it. Um, but if you do want to learn more, definitely, of course, visit bponlinefitness.com. There's a ton of information on there related to online fitness coaching, and I also share some free and valuable information that you can make use of as well. That's, of course, you don't have to invest in anything, it's free for you to access. There's a fitness blog that I upload to, as well as an email list that you can sign up to. I send out an email newsletter that's free for anybody to access. Usually send out every Monday. And then you also get updates on any streams. All of these streams are free for anybody to access. So, again, definitely check that out if that's something that you're interested in. Again, guys, every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, I do these streams. And then I'll also, of course, do other streams outside of these, including a stream on, of course, Tuesday on TikTok. And then every other Thursday, I do streams on, of course, YouTube. So definitely check those out if that's something that you're interested in, of course, learning more about and really want to, make use of. And again, this is all really valuable information that anybody can take advantage of. So let's go ahead and get started with our discussion for the day, which is over the topic of stop looking for the perfect nutrition label. This is a very important point to really have a clear grasp on, and I think you'll find it beneficial when you really approach nutrition in this way. So there's a few different points that we'll be going over in this particular live stream, and some of these points are going to vary. Again, our primary focus is on nutrition labels themselves and really understanding how to, identify your nutrition outside of just trying to make sure you have the perfect, like everything's perfect in what you're looking for. It does not have to be perfect, and that's what we're really going to go over today. So in this slide, we're going to go over the perfect nutrition label doesn't exist. Nutrition labels are information and not report cards. One number shouldn't decide whether you eat a food. Serving size challenges the meaning of everything else. Look at what a food provides and not only what it contains. And high protein doesn't automatically mean better. So before I get into this point, as far as this discussion itself, is all about understanding that you don't have to be extremely strict on your nutrition. The main thing is as we go through this, the main thing you need to take away from all of these different points is that it's mainly about how you approach identifying what you're eating and paying attention more and learning to limit what may be considered, of course, unhealthy. And that's the main thing that I'm trying to get across with this particular stream. It's just giving you more of a focus on your mindset and learning how to really hone in on that first. So let's go ahead and get started here. So the first point, of course, is the perfect nutrition label doesn't exist. So again, keep in mind that a nutrition label is a decision-making tool. It is not a scorecard that tells you whether a food is good or bad. Every food is going to come with trade-offs. So one option may have more protein, while another provides more fiber, carbohydrates, healthy fats, and more micronutrients. So context can change when good meat, with what good means. So a higher carb food might be exactly what you need before a demanding workout. And like what I've mentioned before, when we're talking about carbohydrates, it's more so about the quality of the carbs themselves. And that's what you have to pay attention to the most. One number, again, doesn't define the food, so calories, sugar, sodium, fat, and protein should be considered together and not judged individually. Really look at the whole, the context of the food itself, of what you're looking at. Really take a step back and think about the overall food itself. So your entire diet matters more than that one label. So one meal, regardless of one specific type of food, is not going to completely derail your progress and going to, again, push you in the wrong directions. So a single food is going to rarely determine the quality of your nutrition overall. You have to take a step back, and again, this is why I mentioned tracking food and being mindful and tracking your nutrition is important, because you are seeing a clear overview of what you're eating, and it's going to show altogether, what you're getting as far as not only your calories, your macronutrients, but also your vitamins and minerals that come from those foods. So you have to take a step back and see what all that particular food is contributing to your diet. So choose based on purpose. Ask, what does this food contribute to my day? Like what I just mentioned, instead of, is this label perfect? So again, really look at the whole entire context of the label itself. So the next point is that nutrition labels are information and not report cards. So again, really, this is sort of an extension to our previous point, but again, this is very important to get a grasp of. A nutrition label, again, isn't there to tell whether the food is good or bad. It's what is giving you information that you can use to decide how that food is going to fit into your nutrition. So the calories itself is going to provide context. So they tell you how much energy a serving provides, not whether you should feel guilty about eating it. So again, take into consideration what kind of food it is. If it's a quality, type of food, it may be higher in calories, but that doesn't mean that it is going to affect your results in a negative way, if that makes sense. That's like when we're looking at calorie intake, like for example, this is a pretty decent example to think about. You could see a food that of course is more healthy, focus. Like for example, these may be two weird combinations, but for example, like if you get like a pre-made salad, normally the calorie intake for those is usually 380 calories. But then at the same time, you can look at, for example, like when you go to Starbucks and you see a lot of the drinks, I'm always particular when I look at drink calories all the time. So I'm pretty aware of these a lot. But like for example, like that they're having like the not the new, they've been around forever, but the pumpkin spice latte. They're usually up to like 270 to 300 and something calories for a drink itself. Of course, it's going to depend on what size that drink is. But what I'm trying to say is think of the context of those different, even though those are a little bit different where you have a drink and a salad is food, there's a difference. They may equal the same amount of calories, but the quality of what you're getting as far as the nutrients that you're getting from both of those, items is totally different. The salad is, of course, going to be the better choice because a lot of the calories that are loaded into a lot of those, any of those latte top drinks are going to really have a lot of cream, milk, a lot of sugar. So again, even though the calorie intake is roughly the same, the quality of what you're getting is totally different. And that's another thing too, that one thing that really helped me, and I know this is still considered what we're talking about, but it's a little bit off of sort of this topic on nutrition labels. But one thing that helped me a ton is whenever I started to pay attention to, like, whenever I was really getting into the grasp of how I should approach nutrition and how I should pay attention to it, because there was a point in my routine where I wasn't tracking nutrition. And even though I was working out, I wasn't tracking nutrition. I was really struggling to see progress. And so a lot of that had to do, like, a lot of what I had to think about in that situation is I had to sort of take a step back and really pay attention to my nutrition a little bit more. I may not have been fully tracking nutrition right away, but I started to get more of a grasp on what I'm actually eating and what I'm actually consuming. And like the small little things that I didn't really consider as much of a, factor in what is affecting my results, I started to pay attention to. So one of the things was that I usually before would really enjoy going to Starbucks, and I would usually get one of the latte top drinks. But I completely stopped doing that. I don't even do that anymore. Like if I go to Starbucks, I'll get a dark coffee and I'll kind of make it at home. Like if I add like cream and like usually like I'll have sweetener in it instead of sugar. That's basically what I'll do is I'll make it here. Sometimes I can drink coffee by itself, but usually I can't. But usually I'll have like a sweetener with it and then like a non-dairy sort of creamer with it. And that's usually what I include when I get a coffee. Don't get lattes anymore. I don't get any types of drinks like that. Especially whenever I started to pay attention to calories, I completely stopped getting lattes. I was just like, I got to the point to where I was like, okay, I got to stop. Like, I have to pay attention more to these calories themselves because they are contributing more than what I think they're contributing. And so when I started to pay attention to those, that's where I, again started to notice a difference and notice, okay, I think this is helping. I'm going in the right direction, getting rid of that. I could still get coffee, but I can find, like have coffee, but not to the degree like a latte. I can do that, like just get a normal, because I like dark roast coffee. I usually just get a dark roast and then I'll make it myself. And the calories for that is going to be totally less than if you was to get a latte because you're not having all of the added stuff in there. So you just have to pay attention to those little things. Like minor things like that really do add up in the grand scheme of, your nutrition itself. So macros have a different purpose. Protein, carbs, and fats each contribute something valuable, of course, depending on your needs and goals. So again, really pay attention to what your goal is in particular. Again, whatever that may be. Again, like whether we're talking about muscle gain, fat loss, performance-based goals, really pay attention to that. And that's where you need to really think about how is this contributing to my goal? A lot of times with muscle gain, we generally want to focus on, of course, protein as the primary target, but we also want to take it into consideration our other macros as well. Individuals numbers, individual numbers, excuse me, need context. So higher sodium, sugar, fat, or carbohydrates don't automatically make the food a poor choice. This kind of goes back into, again, the quality of the foods. So that's like when you see sugar that maybe come from fruit versus sugar that is from something that is processed, are totally different, forms of sugar in a sense, because with your sugar that's coming from fruit, that is more of a natural sort of sugar versus, again, like your processed, like if you were just to get something from like a snack cake or something like that, that sugar is totally different than sugar that you're getting from fruit. So, you have to think about that as well. So look at what the food provides. Consider protein, fiber, fats, or excuse me, vitamins. I don't know why I said fats there. Vitamins, minerals, and healthy fats and useful training fuel. Serving sizes are reference points, so they help you understand the numbers on the label and not dictate exactly how much you must eat. So serving size is one thing that I do try to pay attention to more, and for the longest time, I didn't understand how serving size work and what, like exactly how it, I used to think that it used to be based off like your serving was basically like the full container, but that's not necessarily the case all the time. Usually your serving size can kind of vary. So A lot of times you'll have food that does say serving per container, basically like if it's like a box of something or a can, if it says per container, that is the, total calories that you're getting from that. Whereas sometimes you'll have foods that say per a certain gram or, per a half gram or something to that effect. Whereas you have to kind of pay attention to that your serving is going to be different. So it's not based on a container size, it's based on whatever measurement is providing. So you kind of have to pay attention to that too, and not just think that, oh, just because it says this amount for total calories, that's only the amount that it's giving you per serving. So even if it says the calories or whatever that amount is, like 300 calories, that is only off, that is only basing that off of the serving size itself. So you kind of have to pay attention to that. One number shouldn't decide whether you eat a food. So calories, carbs, sugar, fat, or sodium can again tell you something about a food, but no single number is going to tell you everything. Again, look at the whole nutritional picture. A food higher in calories may also provide protein, fiber, healthy fats, vitamins, and minerals. Again, like what I've said, like with the salad and the drink, it's that concept that you have to pay attention to. Another thing as well is like, for example, like brown rice, usually that is your healthy option. And though that is a healthy option, it has a high amount of calories. But that doesn't necessarily mean that those are bad calories. Brown rice, again, it has your healthy carbs in there. You're getting a whole wide range of nutrients, even though the calorie intake on those is pretty high. You're still getting a quality amount of carbohydrates in that brown rice, or like when we're talking about quinoa or anything like that. So again, consider the purpose of the food. So a higher carb meal may be exactly what you need to fuel or recover from a demanding workout. Think about your overall diet. One meal or snack doesn't determine the quality of your nutrition. Your repeated patterns matter more. And this is something that I've mentioned before too, with, paying attention to nutrition. It's not about trying to avoid everything, trying to restrict your diet everywhere. It's just about paying attention more to what you're eating. That's the main focus. You don't have to completely avoid, you know, the foods that you enjoy. It's okay to have those foods here and there, but it's more so about what you're doing consistently each day that is going to determine where your results are going to come from. It's not just about those one-off, meals or one-off snacks that are outside of what your normal nutrition is. That's not what's going to affect it. It's always what your patterns are and what you do consistently that is going to determine the results that you're going to get. So avoid turning numbers into good and bad labels, or avoid turning, of course, nutrition labels to good or bad. Nutrition information should help you make decisions, again, and not create unnecessary food rules. Serving size changes the meaning of everything else. So every number on a nutrition label, calories, protein, carbs, fats, sugars, sodium, and fiber, is tied to a specific serving size. Without that context, the rest of the label can be misleading. So this goes, I kind of got ahead of myself in talking about serving size, but this is something, again, I think you need to really pay attention to when it comes to food labels, especially is really start at the top, check the serving size per container before evaluating anything else. So again, you're basing that serving size is going to be what's at the top. It's usually the first thing that you're going to see. And the serving size is basically telling you what, what all of the other information below it. It's breaking down it's telling you the total of what the information below is telling you, if that makes sense. So your serving size, whatever is at the top, you have to base the rest of the label off that serving size that is at the top. So like for example, I'm not sure if you can see here at the corner of the screen where I have this nutrition facts label. You could probably barely see it, but Of course, right here in this blue, there's just you have your serving size. And then under here where it says serving size, you have your amount per serving. That's what I'm talking about. So amount per serving, everything under this is going to base it off of that serving size. So you have to base it off your calories. So think about what that serving is. If it's only half of that container, keep in mind that when you're eating half of that, that is what your calories are going to be. And then if you eat another serving of that, that doubles what the calories are here, if that makes sense. So you have to pay attention to that. Compare it with what you actually eat. So a 150 calorie serving becomes 300 calories if your typical portion is twice as large. So again, I got ahead of myself there. Protein changes too. So if one serving provides 10 grams of protein, but you regularly eat two servings, you're actually getting 20 grams of protein. So you would have to double that up. Be careful when comparing products. So two foods may appear very different nutritionally simply because their listed serving sizes aren't equal. So again, pay attention to those serving sizes. And even if they may align together, maybe their serving sizes opposite of each other. So serving size isn't a recommendation, it is a reference point for interpreting the nutrition information, not necessarily the amount you should eat. So again, that's just giving you more of a reference point. Usually I base a lot of what I eat off of paying attention to the serving size, but again, you don't necessarily have to see it in that way. Um, it is just sort of a reference and a guide on giving you the total, or whatever amount of that particular food. Oh, go back. Look at what a food provides and not only what it contains. So ask what the food adds. Look for protein, fiber, carbohydrates, healthy fats, vitamins, minerals, and other useful nutrients. So don't again judge by one number. Higher calories, sodium, sugar, or fat, again, do not automatically make a food a poor choice. Consider the food's purpose. So again, carbohydrates may fuel training, proteins can support recovery, and fats can provide energy and help with nutrient absorption. Fats also, especially healthy fats, help with hormone regulation at the same time. So look at the entirety of the meal, the whole meal. So a food doesn't need to provide everything by itself. Different foods can complement one another. And that's like why I mentioned too, when we look at foods in our nutrition and paying attention to our meals, it's about spreading our intake throughout the day. I've probably said that multiple times in these streams, but it's more about not only fixating on one meal, but learning how to complement all of those foods together and give you the total amount of what your overall nutrition is for that day. So the last point, high protein doesn't automatically mean better. So more protein isn't automatically necessary. If you're already meeting your daily protein needs, choosing the highest protein version of every food may provide little additional benefit. So generally with protein, like what I mentioned, you want to base it off your body weight. So you don't want to go too far above that because again, there's not going to be much of a nutritional advantage that you're going to get when it comes to just increasing it. Now, if you take into consideration that you're maybe burning more calories in the day and you're having to, like basically add upon that protein that you burn, that's a whole nother story, as far as supplementing that and adding more protein because of the taking into account your burned calories. Look beyond the protein number. Fiber, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins, minerals, calories, and the serving size all help determine what contributes to or what a food is going to contribute to your nutrition. So, not every food needs to be a protein source. Fruits, vegetables, grains, and other foods can be valuable even when they contain very little protein. Consider the purpose of the meal. Before training, for example, a carbohydrate rich meal or food may be more useful than simply choosing whichever option contains the most protein. So, generally, with protein intake, to me, it is best to focus on protein intake post workout rather than before. Your carbs are more beneficial before because they do provide that energy, But at the same time, it's still important to have carbs past, your workout because they do help with the recovery process. They do complement protein in itself to help with the recovery process. So you kind of have to pay attention as well, is that those foods are going to sort of work together. Alrighty, so I have another point beyond this. So your nutrition goals change how you read the same label. So for muscle gain, you may pay more attention to protein, carbs, and total calories. Again, to support training, recovery, and growth. For example, for fat loss, calories, serving size, protein, and fiber may become more important for managing energy intake and fullness. For performance, carbohydrates, fluids, sodium, and overall energy can become valuable considerations around demanding workouts. For general health overall, so just kind of maintaining where you're at, fiber, micronutrients, saturated fats, sodium, and overall food variety may receive more attention. So depending on where you're at and what your goals are, is going to kind of determine, okay, what we're focusing on and what we're paying attention to more. And again, that's where, looking at your label is going to sort of make a difference. Alrighty, guys. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. I hope that this was insightful, helpful, and valuable, and that this gave you a little bit of insight on how to think about your nutrition, especially when we're looking at nutrition labels, paying attention to serving sizes, and really taking a step back and looking at the entire context of the nutrition label itself. And again, paying attention to what that food is really going to bring to your overall diet and will it contribute to your goal in particular. So you have to pay attention to that. So, with all that being said, guys, I really appreciate your time. I really hope that this gave you a little bit of insight on that topic. If you do have any other topics you would like me to discuss in the future, in a future stream, whether that be on this stream or even if I do like a TikTok stream or YouTube stream, feel free to let me know. Another thing, too, again, please check out my website. It is bponlinefitness.com, which is here on the bottom of your screen. You can visit my website to learn more about online fitness coaching, as well as some free resources that I have to provide there as well. But thank you guys once again. I really appreciate your time. And if you do find these helpful, please share them. These also are archived to YouTube, and you can watch them anytime on YouTube, of course. But with all that being said, guys, again, I appreciate your time, and I will see you guys next Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time in the next live stream. So thank you guys for watching.